In the discipline of American Skeet, Todd Bender has promoted the sport both in and out of the competition arena around the world more than any other shooter in history. He is a proven champion with a couple of dozen world titles to his name, but he's also taken his expertise as a coach across the globe. His first world title was back in 1980 and he's shown no signs of slowing down. Let's talk skeet with one of the world's greatest champions and coaches.
Continuing on with our champion shooters that have become champion coaches, and there's none better in the world of American Skeet, as I've said in the introduction, than Todd Bender. Now, Todd, you shouldn't have any problems at all understanding my accent.
I'm doing okay so far.
Todd, really great to see you again. I know you've spent a lot of time in Australia, but tonight I think we've got you all the way from Pennsylvania, about as far away from Australia as you can get.
You do, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate what you guys are doing for the sport, so thanks for having me.
Well, you were an easy choice. I mean, we've picked one coach from each of the 5 major disciplines, and in American Skeet, there is nobody that travels the world more than you do. And I want to talk about your shooting career shortly, but your coaching career seems to be getting busier and busier.
Yeah, so my biggest problem now is I'm coaching so much is that I don't have a chance to practice as much as I want to compete. So, I'll be coaching on a trip for 2 weeks and I'll be home for a day. And then I've got to practice that day because I'm gone for another week. And the last place I want to go to is the gun club. So that's taking its toll a little bit.
I think the goal here is just to get all of your students to hit targets. So at least you're getting the visual confirmation in your brain. So just tell them not to miss.
That coaching has actually replaced my practice a little bit because you got to remember that I'm on the field for 8 hours a day, like I was today, and all I'm talking about is how to do it right. So it's positive imprinting into my brain, which is good. And when I'm coaching, I don't miss any targets, so I think I'm great. so I'm talking about how to do it right. I'm seeing targets. I'm watching targets. So it actually replaced a little bit of the practice. So it's a good thing.
In a previous interview, we actually spoke about a similar topic with Vincent Hancock, one of the greatest ever international skeet shooters.
Absolutely, yes.
He's doing a lot of coaching, and he said one of the problems he faces now when he goes to competition, he looks at the shooter in front of him and says, oh, boy, this guy's in the wrong hole point. He's about to miss. And it actually happens, and it gets a negative thought in his head. Is that something you struggle with, or do you shoot with a group of guys that rarely miss?
So number one, I don't struggle with that. I do see things. I can't turn it off. So I see things coming up. I see misses about to happen. But the one thing about American Skeet, our discipline, is that I shoot on a squad, and it's the same guys all the time. There's no drawing for squads, none of that. So the 4 guys I shoot with all the time. We're all the top shooters in the country. We're best friends. We know each other. So that never even enters into play when I'm competing. Now, shoot-offs are a different thing. But I'm fortunate because I shoot with a great group of guys. They're all my best friends. And that none of that even comes into play.
When you're shooting with the group of guys, do you guys talk in between stands, or do you sort of keep to yourselves?
We do. Well, that's a really good question. There's the normal nervous chatter, hey, keep your head down, work hard, and everyone says the same stuff. I do tend to have small conversations within the squad in between stations, and a lot of that is just taking some of the pressure out and just talking. Hey, what are we doing for dinner tonight? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? It might last for a minute or two, and then we're back into our own groove. So it's just light stuff, but it's just like, you can't go out there for an hour and a half and concentrate for an hour and a half, or smoke will come out of your ears. So you got to kind of take it up and take it down, which all top athletes can do, turn it on and turn it off. And that's what we do, just kind of alleviate a little bit of the pressure going on.
When does your routine start, your pre-shot routine?
So I shoot second on my squad. So when the 5th guy on the squad is, say, shooting station 2, I'm starting to do my pre-shot routine for station 3. When he's done with station 2 and we're walking up to station 3, then I got another guy in front of me, and that's when I'm involved. I'm going 1,000 miles an hour. By the time he's done with station 3 and it's my time to get up on station, that's when I'm kind of bringing it down, because I've already done my rehearsals, I've done my pre-shot routine. Now, and here's the most important part, is I've got to bring that down. And as I walk into the station, there's got to be a commitment to plan, which I learned from Lanny Basham, which we teach all the time. And that commitment to plan is I'm walking the stage and like, yep, this is what I'm going to do. Come hell or high water, this is what I'm doing. Most people don't have that commitment, which means they walk into the station, they still have doubt. So I end that doubt when I say, you know, whether my plan is good or bad, this is what I'm going to do. And I've done this long enough, I can kind of trust the plan. Okay, that's going to be good. That eliminates doubt into the station so that I can just execute. Then I walk off the station and I do some reinforcement to what just happened, responding correctly to what happened. And then I go into that 30 seconds of, hey, what are you doing for dinner tonight? Did you make sure to cool the beer down? Because I want beer after we're done, and whatever.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you for letting us in on.
Is that too big of an answer?
No, it's exactly what I was looking for. So thank you for that. Yeah, it's very helpful for people to understand exactly what is involved in the importance, I believe, in also what you're saying in terms of having some downtime as well as some concentration time.
Huge.
You pointed out a great point, and that is true. It is extremely difficult to concentrate nonstop for that amount of time. So the downtime becomes just as important as what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely.
You just threw out the name Lanny Basham. Now that's a serious contender for one of the greatest motivational people in the sport of shooting. How much have you had to do with Lanny? Because a lot of Olympic shooters claim that their success has been based on his philosophies.
Lanny came to me, believe it or not, 12 years ago, and said he wanted to work with me. And for the last 12 years, 2 or 3 times a year, we do seminars which kind of sync up the mental side of the game and the technical side of the game. So I'm the technical coach, Lanny's the mental coach. And guys come in, they spend 4 days with us, and it's pretty much half and half. Half the time is spent in the classroom, going over his technical stuff, mental control, mental management. Then on the field, implementing that mental stuff and also doing my technical stuff. And we've done that for 12 years. And Lanny says, I don't know, but we may be the only sport, the only discipline that actually has the top mental guy in the planet and the top technical guy, and them working together to sync those things up. And so again, we're doing 12 years. The success that I've seen out of our clients is unbelievable. That it takes a couple of days, but then you can watch things start to ramp up. And of course, it's great for me. I get to go to the mountain and sit on the right side of God. I hang with the master for 4 days, twice a year, which is wonderful for me. And he's become a great friend. He's an amazing teacher. He's an amazing coach. What he's done for me is unbelievable. I can't say enough good things about him.
Yeah, I see you attribute a lot of your wins to working with him. I know you were quite successful prior to working with him, but you attribute even your own personal success to the tools that he's been able to give you in your own.
Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah, and he's made me probably 10 times a better coach, because now I'm more aware of what my clients are thinking, how they're reacting, how they're responding to things. And I'm more aware of how I communicate with them, what I say to them, making sure I'm saying the right things, not just positive, but putting the right spin on it, building their self-image, building their confidence, and kind of handling them with kid gloves. So it's made me a much better coach, and something I always tell people. So the first 30 years of my career before I met Lanny, I won 13 world championships, which is pretty good, right? I mean, not a lot of people win one, and the guys who win one had one good day. So the multiples are very rare, right? So in the first 30 years, I'd won 13 world championships. Then I met Lanny. In the last 12 years, that number's 26 now. So in the last 10 years of meeting him, it damn near doubled. And I attribute that to all of him, because he taught me how to control how I responded to things, how I responded to bad performances, how I handled good performances, how I structured my training, I can't say enough.
I really appreciate what you're saying about that and the importance of tying in both the mental game and the technical game. As you said, you're the technical man, and being a skeet shooter, I'm going to have quite a few technical questions for you if you don't mind.
Oh,
Like
no.
to back your brain and get a bit of an appreciation. I did have a look on your website, and you've been very thorough in the information that you've provided there, which is, you know, a huge tool for people to be able to access, to be able to understand what you do, which is great. Can you just, for our viewers, can you just go through some of the most important technical facets that you like to teach, from stance, hold point, eye position, probably just the ones that you feel are the most important?
You didn't tell me this was going to be hard. Oh my God.
Sorry, that 8-hour day you had today, it's now 9.
Well, I'll tell you this. There's so many, as you well know, both of you, there's so many things involved in shooting at top levels, or shooting correctly and shooting well. But I always tell people, if you boil it down to its lowest common denominator, I came up, well, I didn't, a client of mine came up with the phrase about 20 years ago, and we call it eyes and thighs. And this sport is two things: it's eyes and thighs, which means if you have good form, if your body mechanics are good, you're moving the gun correctly with the body, you know, not throwing it, not doing bad stuff that way, and you're visually controlling what the eyes are doing, watching that target from start to finish. If you have good form and controlling your vision, which I spend 8 hours a day doing with people, so it's not that simple, but those two things, form and vision, eyes and thighs, you've got it made. You can't miss. Probably 90% of my day is related to and working on vision. Because especially in American Skeet, you know, the gun's pre-mounted, the targets are close, things are fast. So it's all about visual acquisition and seeing the target correctly out of the house, that you don't have a lot of time. So your first move needs to be the right move, which means you better be controlling the eyes correctly. And you can get very in depth in that, and I do over an 8-hour period, but it's eyes and thighs. So technical form and vision.
In terms of the vision, you bring up a very good point. Do you teach everyone to use the same eye hold, or does that vary from person to person, and including things like eye dominance?
So, well, eye dominance, that's a totally different deal. But as far as eye position, everybody's different. We all have different degrees of visual acuity, dominance, contrast acuity. There's so many different things. So because everyone's eyes are different, there's no right or wrong place to look. Now, the good news is I tend to be pretty average, which means 95% of the people I work with actually like looking where I look, because I'm looking in specific places for specific reasons. Given a skeet field, given the angle of target presentation, and given the background, there's better places to look than others on a skeet field. And fortunately, generally what I do, because I put a lot of work into it, I've kind of figured out what's right and what's wrong. But that doesn't mean everyone's going to fall into that groove. So I tell people what they should be doing, why I think that should be happening, and then we kind of see how they deal with it. And if they're not seeing what I want them to see, if they're not reacting the way I want them to react, then we start making modifications. And fortunately, I've been doing this long enough. So I did the math. Listen to this. Oh my God. This is my 48th season competing. I just finished my 48th season shooting ski, which, oh my God, I'm old. Jesus Christ. But I've been teaching for 35 years.
Too, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So I've been teaching for 35 years. So I've seen enough people, and I've experienced enough things that I've seen a lot of things. So I kind of know what works and what doesn't. And when I get certain situations, whether it's dominance issues or this and that, you kind of know where to go. You never know for sure because every situation is different. But you got a better idea than what I did maybe 15 years ago.
Todd, I'm interested how you like setting your clients' shotguns up in relation to its point of aim. How high do you get your gun shooting, you personally, and what do you like to see your clients shooting? Is it 60-40? Is it 50-50? Is it 100% high?
Yeah, so I think, Russell, I think in your game or trap, point impact's a lot more important. It's skeet, it's 15 to 20 yards. what's the difference? I mean, really. So I shoot about 70-30.
Yeah.
And which means my beads kind of stack. They make a figure eight. That's generally when I check gun fit, and I'm all about height of the comb. That dictates where the eye sits. So that's what I'm really concerned about when I check gun fit. Everything else, as far as I'm concerned, is kind of comfort, unless it's way off, unless it's way too long, way too short. But I don't get too wrapped around the axle about all the secondary stuff in gun fit. I'm concerned about height of the comb. And I wanted to see a figure eight, which means I see the whole pupil above the back of the gun, which means they're getting good vision over the gun. And the comb's high enough that they've got to keep their head down, which is huge, of course. But stocks tend to be a little bit low. People tend to raise their head and peek a little bit, and they're not seeing that great.
Do you use the pattern board to establish that, or do you just?
I do not. I look from the long end of the shotgun. I make sure it's empty. Have them close the gun. I have them point at me, and I know where that eye should be. And it's I don't have enough time.
Yeah.
That my 8 hours on a skeet field, we use all of it working the mechanics and taking the shots and this and that. So I don't have enough time to go to a patterning board.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I had a private, if I had one client for one day and we had time, because as you well know, not every gun shoots where it's supposed to shoot.
Yeah.
so put it on, and I don't spend a lot of time on a pattern board. Yeah. I mean, I will initially, but I don't spend a ton of time because I'm just not that wrapped around the axle about it. And again, in my clinics, I don't have enough time to deal with it. Yeah. So I'm going to assume, which may be a bad thing, but I'm going to assume the gun is, of course, I'm talking to them, asking them, hey, what issues you having? What's going on? And if I start to see things and hear things that might indicate a point of impact problem, then we'll deal with it. But on a daily basis, that's not a big concern of mine.
What about gun weight balance, and particularly in relation to the sub gauges?
So again, balance, I don't get too wrapped around the axle. I've always thought, because I'm an old guy, I've been at this a long time. And when it comes to weight, I started back in the early 70s. And back then there weren't tube sets. If you shot the four gauges in American Skeet, you either shot 4 Remington 1100s or shot a barrel set. So guns were light and whippy. And then tubes came along, which was a poor man's 4-barrel set. It was a more economical way to shoot 4 guns. But that's what radically changed this game, because when we introduced weight, and a tube set's 14 ounces out in front, when we introduced weight out in front of the gun, scores went through the roof. I mean, people started breaking 400s left and right. That was because of the weight out front, because that gave us some control. So I always tell people, I want you to go as heavy and as long. I'm all about barrel length too. As heavy and as long as you can comfortably handle.
Just on that, you just bring up a point. Sorry to cut you off there, but
no problem.
On barrel length, it's been something that over the years, skeet guns traditionally were made as a 28-inch barrel, then 30-inch barrel. Now I take it 32 and 34 are very common. And why is that?
Well, again, it's more mass out front, which is more control. When I started in the early 70s, I started with 28. 26 was standard.
Wow.
Then I was one of the first guys in 1991 to go to 30-inch barrels. That's when I set the high average record. So I had a great year, and that everything kind of blew up. Everyone went to that. Now I'm at 32. But if you look at the size of me, I was kind of built for a 32-inch gun. I mean,
Have you tried 34? George Digweed was telling us in his interview, he tried 34, but he said in all the close-in shots in sporting, they were too hard, and he settled on 32.
You won't see 34 on a skeet field. I think Krieghoff stopped making them. I know Protzi still makes them, but that's I think the 32s is kind of a point of diminishing returns. That you've got too much mass out there. Yeah. So I think 32 is the end, especially for skeet. Again, if you look at me, I was built for a 32-inch gun, but they ain't a lot of guys out there like me. So I think most people need to stick with 30. That's kind of, but again, it depends on the individual. I can't tell a client, I can't tell you, well, you guys shoot 30-inch barrels because I shoot 30-inch barrels. I don't know. It's whoever the person is and whatever they're comfortable with. But I do believe, because of my experience, that you go as long and as heavy as you can comfortably handle.
And chokes, Todd only skeet chokes. I mean, I was interested in some of the previous interviews with our international skeet shooters that a lot of them are using a quarter and a half choke, but there's no advantage in American skeet for that.
No, I tend to be tighter than most just because my ego, I want to hit them. But so a normal skeet choke is 5,000s.
Yeah.
Where a quarter, which I guess improved cylinder,
10.
that's about 10,000s. I tend to be closer to that, but that's just personal preference. And yeah, I think I don't see a lot of people being overchoked in skeet. If anyone is, I probably am.
Yeah.
I'm probably too tight, but I enjoy it and I like it. So that's not that. I think people get too wrapped around the axle about chokes. You know, people ask me all the time about different chokes and shot sizes and this and that. And I've always thought, you know, the target's going this way, 60 miles an hour, and the shot's going that way at 1,200 feet per second. You're either there or you're not. You can shoot number fours or 10,000 choke or 2,000 choke. You got to put the stuff in the right spot, right? So, I mean, it's all kind of secondary.
Now, in skeet, we get criticized a bit for the amount of time that we do station training. So a lot of trap shooters, they like to shoot round after round, just to get the practice of the rounds. But of course, in skeet, you know, they'll often find us standing on one stand for an inevitable amount of time working on something. What is your recommendation for people in terms of how they should train?
Well, that's a great question. I think everybody's a little bit different, depending on what motivates them. But I'll tell you what I do. I've got different levels of training. I train for feel, and when I'm training for feel, that means I might stand at high two, and I might shoot 12 of them because I'm training. I'm training for that feel of how that feels, and I'll do that. That's probably 20-25% of my training. Then we have training for competition, which means I'm going to shoot regular rounds. And that pretty much dominates what I'm doing, because I can't go to a tournament and look at the referee and say, you know what, give me a couple of high threes. I'll let you know when I'm ready. I mean, that one needs to count. So I need to train what they're going to make me do in competition. And not only so the training for feel is physical training, you know, the technique, the technical part of the shot, what it's going to feel like. But when I'm training for competition, it's not only doing the technical stuff, but I'm training the mental stuff and my mental program and how I'm controlling things. And I want to do that mainly because that's what I'm gonna have to do in competition. They're gonna make me go out and shoot 4 rounds, so I need to be prepared to go out to shoot 4 rounds, physically and mentally. And I think it varies. And people talk to me about the percentage that you might do that. And you know, I might be shooting. I might have a day of training, and I'll be in training for competition, but I'm not real happy with low 5. So I immediately come out of training for competition. I go train for feel. I'll go and stand at low 5. And so I think everyone's going to know what they need. And do you need technical training on one shot, or do you need to train the round? I think
no. And just in terms of doubles training, how much emphasis do you put on your doubles training?
So I tell my clients, and I do the same thing with me. This whole game's doubles. I mean, anymore, singles is a preliminary event to weed out the weaklings. Then everything, the serious stuff's decided at doubles. So 50% of my training is devoted to doubles, which means if I go to the club and I shoot 8 boxes of shells, I'm going to shoot 4 rounds of singles. I'll do two training rounds for feel, 2 rounds of competition. Then I'll shoot 4 rounds of doubles. And I'll shoot some doubles, a box or 2 for feel, a box or 2 in competition, whatever. But it's going to be 50-50. And if I'm shooting my doubles correctly, if I'm doing what I should be doing, I'm actually training my singles, because doubles is all about the first shot. Everyone thinks doubles has something to do with the second shot. Doubles ain't got nothing to do with the second shot. It's about a good first shot. So I'm actually training my singles when I'm shooting doubles. So it all kind of works together.
Todd, I want to talk about the World Skeet Championships. Your record there is tremendous. You've said you've won 26 titles now. In 1992, the last World Championship, I believe it was in Savannah, in Georgia. I think
that's correct.
Last year it was there. An Australian, Adrian Cousins, won the high overall. He shot the lot. He shot 450, I think, 450.
650 out of 650.
Was it 650? Yeah. There you go. I'm taking 200 targets off you. Cuzzo, and I don't mean this as any disrespect, but I knew Adrian Cousins from a long time before that. Yeah. I never ever thought Adrian Cousins was a great shot, but he was the most determined person I ever met. And when he made up his mind he was going to win a world championship at American Skeet, I think a lot of people initially laughed at him until they realised how much shooting he was doing. And he went over there a few times and got hammered, but kept going back. And finally, he won that high all around, a high overall, and he also won the 12 gauge, I think, a couple of years later.
That's correct, yes.
But Adrian, he wasn't a gifted shooter, but he was the hardest working shooter that I can imagine. And look, we were very sorry that you sent him back after he won there because we thought you'd keep him, but sadly he come back. But that's another topic for another day. But
we thought you wanted him back.
No, we thought that was part of it. You win the world championship, you stay in the country, you win the world championship. But Adrian come back, and he's done a lot to progress the sport of American skeet here in Australia, because a lot of people would have seen Adrian win that and thought, well, if he can win it, I can win it. And that's exactly what you want. But it leads me to the question, do you ever get people that you coach that you, after a day with them, you say, have you ever bought a set of golf clubs and tried that sport because this isn't for you? Because I would have said that to Cuzzo years ago, and thank God I didn't. But is there anyone out there that you just think is uncoachable?
So I've been teaching for 35 years. I've had a handful of people. I think there's some people who walk the face of this planet who have zero hand-eye coordination, zero. And unfortunately, I think I've worked with most of them. There's only a handful of them, but I think I've seen them. My thought is there's no such thing as bad students. There's only bad coaches. So if someone's not getting it, it's my fault. It's not their fault. It's my fault. So I'm always pushing, trying to figure out, okay, if I'm not getting on this angle, maybe I can come in from this angle and hit it. So I'm always, it's just what I do. So I'm just trying. So I've seen some people who are not as well off as others when it comes to ability. But does that answer your question?
No, it's a good diplomatic way out. Now, Cuzzo wasn't the only foreigner to win at the world titles, and Craig Lakey from England won a couple of events as well.
I want to tell you something interesting about that, but before just to throw in.
Please.
So Craig Lakey won the 12 gauge. Adrian won the 12 gauge and won the high overall. Do you know what both of those, this is interesting. Do you know what both of those shooters from Australia and the UK had in common?
No, I don't. I mean, this is a good.
They had in common with me. We have the same thing going for us. Wayne Mays took them under his wing. Wayne thought he was a novelty because he was cousins, right? And Wayne took him under his wing. Craig Lakey, so Adrian shot with us for years because I shot with Wayne for 25 years. Adrian shot with us for a couple of years. Craig Lakey shot with us for a couple of years from England when he was a kid. So the common denominator there is they were all sucked into the Wayne Mays mindset of winning and competing. And so if you didn't know that, I think that's the main thing. That here's a guy like Cuzzo who has no business winning anything because he's an idiot, right?
I'll make sure he hears that.
Brought into the fold with the best shooter ever and became friends and shot with him, trained with him, as did Craig Lakey, as did I. I give most of my all the things that I've done in the sport, and I've done some things that even Wayne would never do. I've done some things that no one will ever do. I credit all that to my 25 years of Wayne Mays.
Yeah, look, I was going to bring up Wayne, but you've brought him up. Tragic circumstances of his passing back in 2013, and there may never be another Wayne Mays. You're as close to it as they get, and his record is unbelievable. But obviously he had that personality about him that he could inspire other people to do better. And yeah, you're right. If you could inspire Adrian Cousins to win a world title, mate, he's better than even I thought he was.
Poor Adrian,
Yeah.
leave him alone.
No, but I guess what I'm saying is that the point of all of this was I would have thought to win an event as a foreigner at the World American Skeet Championships is a very difficult task. And for Craig,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's
Adrian
amazing.
and Craig to win twice over there, it says a lot. But your answer in crediting a bit of that to Wayne May says a lot about him. And he obviously influenced you, and he's influenced a lot of other people in the sport. But Wayne Mays was also a very good ATA shooter. I'd see he achieved his Grand Slam at ATA as well. He'd shot 100 in double rise, 100 off 27 yards, and 200 in singles. Well, there's not too many people that do that in their life, but he obviously chose American Skeet as his first love. Is there any talent coming through that you see as young American skeet shooters over there that you see that could even rival someone like Wayne Mays in 30 years' time?
I'd say no, only because you got to understand Wayne and I were best friends, and we shot together for 25 years. And most of the shooters that you've interviewed recently, most of the shooters that you know of, all the guys in the U.S. team, Dan Carlisle, Al Mullins, Matt Drake, all good friends of mine. We all shot together. One of the top shooters on the planet, the only top shooter on the planet that I haven't met is George Digweed. So I'll take him out of the equation. But of all the top shotgun shooters that I've met around the planet, Wayne Mays is the best shotgun point I've ever seen in my life. And not just shooting skeet with him. We hunted together. We did this. I've watched him shoot trap. We've done this and we've done that. And I've been around, I've been exposed to some of the best shotgun shooters on the planet for the last 48 years. And I've never seen a gifted athlete like Wayne. And you look at Wayne, you didn't think athlete, but I'm telling you, a gifted athlete. His hand-eye coordination, his ability to shoot, his champion's mindset, his approach to everything. There'll never be another like it. Never. So, no.
No, it's a good answer and a very honest answer. So thanks for that. I want to go back to another technical question that Lauren alluded to before, which is a common problem with virtually a third of the people that mount a shotgun to their shoulder, and it's eye dominance. And I know this is a technical answer that you'll provide, but how hard is it for you to coach a cross-dominant shooter, someone that just cannot shoot from their left shoulder, but their left eye is dominant?
We see dominance a lot. I mean, that's a big issue. And it's an issue that's not addressed enough by people. Some people quit the sport because they're not seeing correctly. They're shooting off the right shoulder, but the left eye's controlling things.
It's funny you should say that right there, because Dan Carlisle said exactly the same thing.
It goes undetected and unaddressed. I have a problem with it because it's one of the first things I deal with, and it's one of the first things I check. And I generally don't trust someone to tell me, "Oh yes, I'm right eye dominant," because they don't know. so I actually check it myself. And also, even if I haven't checked it, I can watch them shoot, and just because I've been doing enough, I can see the opposite eye take over. I can see the change in gun speed. I take that back. I've changed one person. I've changed their shoulders. And I had a 14-year-old kid who was just starting out, who had no muscle memory in shooting. And he was extremely left eye dominant. So I just changed his shoulder. We're going to learn to shoot from the left shoulder. And he did just fine. But my average client is in their 40s and 50s and 60s. I mean, look, I'm 59. I'm right-handed. I've been walking this planet for 59 years right-handed, which means you cut my left hand off, I don't miss it because I'm right-handed. So you're not going to teach me to be left-handed. And it's much easier to use an occluder. So we use tape to where people can stay right-handed. They only see one barrel because the tape occludes it. And that's the easiest and best answer. It's better than learning to shoot from the other shoulder. And then there's different degrees in that. because there's different degrees of eye dominance. So not every situation is the same. There's actually people have equal dominance. About probably 15% of the population, both eyes are equal, so it goes back and forth.
So I've heard of American Skeet coaches deliberately making shooters shoot with one eye, even though they've got two good ones. To me, that's crazy.
It is crazy. I don't know how many are doing it. I don't do it. I tell people it's the last option. You wouldn't get behind the wheel of a car and close your eye and go driving around. I mean, you wouldn't do that because you lose your depth perception, you lose half your vision. Same thing with shooting. So closing an eye is the last possible choice. I've actually seen situations where it actually works, but we're talking 0.0001% that we've actually gone with that. And in American Skeet, you can actually get away with it because here's the great thing about American Skeet: everything's a given. You know what you're coming from, you know where it's going, speed, distance, angle. So you don't need depth perception. And there's other things that we can do as far as foot positions and where you're looking to compensate for that. But closing the eye, that's the last choice. And there's so many other options, tape being number one, that can actually give people the vision they need and still be successful.
I thought it may have been a barrier in international skeet until we interviewed Kim Rohde, who told us she is left eye dominant, tapes an eye from the inside of her glove, and no one really knows that. And so to me, it's not a barrier at all if you know what you're doing. But she gave a very detailed answer: is that it's not just a matter of putting the tape inside the glass, you've got to put the tape in exactly the right spot.
Oh my God, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I get people that they're taped and I'm like, well, yeah, I've got tape. They're like, well, it's in the wrong spot. It's not even doing anything. What, are you kidding me? But I'll tell you something about Kim Rohde. I'm not sure about this, but she could probably tape both lenses and still shoot as good.
You would have met a lot of people and traveled to a lot of places and in your time. Is there any particular place or story you can tell us that's a highlight for you?
There you go with the tough questions again, Lauren. What the
I
hell?
know. I gotta ask some hard ones.
And you can't pick on Cuzzo because we've picked on Cuzzo enough.
I'll tell you this. That's a tough question. But of all the places I've been, the trips I enjoy the most are Australia and New Zealand.
Good answer.
No, but it's true. I mean, I love Australia. When I first started going there, I thought I should have been Australian because I just fit in. I mean, they're fun loving. They drink beer and everyone's happy. So I love New Zealand. So those are my two favorite trips. And most of the good stories I could tell you from shooting tournaments or travels, I really can't tell you. I know you can edit things, but yeah. So
yeah, this is child friendly. This interview, it's child friendly. Remember that.
Okay. All right. Yes. Yeah.
We'll catch up for a drink one day then. But we also love having you here, and I'm glad that you can relate with why I got stuck here. I mean, people think it's because I love it, but I mean, the reality is I just love the country.
I thought it was a deal that you took Cuzzo, I bring her. I thought it was sort of like
I was going to say, let's trade back. We'll take her.
I would just like to give you a compliment while I've got you, though. I do a bit of coaching here as well, and I see a lot of students that you've coached that just need a little bit of a touch up or just want me to sort of see how they're progressing. And I love getting anyone that you've coached. I think your fundamentals and the things that you teach, they're a credit to you. And the people that I see that come off of your clinics definitely have the majority of things right. And I do honestly think they literally come to me just to get reassurance that they're on the right track. And it's, you know, a great thing to be able to be such a good shooter, but then also to go on and be such a good coach. Do you think that you do need to actually be a good shooter to be a good coach, though?
Absolutely not. I think number one, thank you very much for that compliment. That means a lot to me. So thank you very much. No, because there's a bunch of good shooters who try to coach who don't have the communication skills. So they have the knowledge, Wayne Mays is one of them. Wayne Mays, the most phenomenal shotgun point I've ever seen, couldn't teach a rat to eat cheese. I mean, he could. If you didn't have any problems, Wayne could help you. Well, I do this and this and this. But if you had problems, and I can tell you some stories, most average problems the average guy has was so far beneath Wayne. I mean, it wasn't even part of his universe. Like looking at the barrel. I'll tell you a story. So we're at a tournament years ago, and I missed a low 6 in the 28 gauge event. The second round, it really pissed me off because I'd been down one target for the whole year. So this was the second target I missed out of like 1,400 targets. It's like, damn it. And I knew I looked at the end of the gun. And I just knew I measured it, right? Just trying to be perfect. So I shot the option, I shot the pair, and I walked off the station. And Wayne and I used to generally talk in between stations. Well, he didn't say nothing, because he knew I was pissed. So we came around the next round, third round, and I shot low 6 and I shot the double. And I looked at those, so I was okay. And I'm leaning up against the fence, and I'm still kind of pissed off. And Wayne looked at me and said, "So, what'd you do in that last low 6?" And I shook my head and I said, "Damn it." I said, "I looked right at the end of the gun." And because I wanted to know this, I looked at Wayne Mays and I said, you ever do that?" And Wayne Mays looked at me like I was a complete idiot and said, "No, why would I do that?" And it occurred to me right at that moment, Wayne wouldn't do that because it wouldn't work. I mean, why would you do that? So Wayne wouldn't look at the end of the gun or measure targets because why would you do that? So wasn't that good of a coach because the average problems he didn't even understand them. So it's important to be a good shooter because you can impart information that the average coach wouldn't know. But I think to be a great coach has nothing to do with shooting ability. More has to do with communication skills.
Yeah, it's an interesting answer. I mean, one of the previous interviews, we interviewed Richard Folds, who, outside of George Digweed, would probably be the next greatest ever sporting clay shooter. And 30 years ago, Todd, Richard Folds' front sight fell off his gun, and he's never put it back on there. He's won Olympic gold medals and 9 world sporting, but he hasn't got a front sight. But he's a bit like Wayne. He doesn't even like to coach, but he probably doesn't even want to explain how he shoots because he just shoots. But to communicate that skill is a different thing altogether.
Absolutely.
Before we wind up, I've got one more question. What was your best year ever personally as a shooter? You just mentioned then you ran about 1,400 in a row. What's your best long break that you've ever had? And what year do you think Todd Bender was at his best?
It's a lot of questions right there.
Yeah.
So my best year ever was in 1991. And that's when I set the high average, the record for the NSSA. So overall average for the whole year. And out of, 6,500 targets, I missed 16. So I was straight in the 12 gauge. I was 1,600 straight in the 12 gauge. I brought 1,400 targets in the 20 and the 28. I missed 1. In the 410, I shot 1,400 targets. I missed 14. And so at the 9,972, that was my overall average for all 4 guns. That no one's ever touched that. That stood for almost 30 years. And that year, I went to the World Championships and I broke 550. I broke my first 550. I broke the doubles, which is 650. And there's a champions event, which I broke that too. So that never been. I broke 750 out of 750. So that was a good year.
Yeah, that's good.
I've had 3 perfect seasons, 2 with the 20 gauge, 1 with the 12 gauge.
What's a perfect season?
So I went to 14 shoots, and I had 1,400 straight with the 20 gauge. I didn't miss a 20 gauge target all year in competition. That's what we consider long runs. I know you guys are a little bit different. That your breaks, it's just however many you do. To where our long runs are about registered targets.
That's an incredible record. Do you have any interest in achieving something else, or have you ticked everything off your list?
Well, I'm one competitive bastard, I'll tell you that. But I'm kind of happy. I'm satisfied. and I'm good right now. And I've made a personal decision. I almost quit last year, but I enjoy shooting too much. And my career from now on is going to be coaching and going to tournaments that I want to go to and shooting with the people I want to shoot with. I'm going to shoot with my friends. I'm going to go to the tournaments I want to, but making the All-American teams, winning world championships, yes, I'm still going to try to do it, but I don't have that I used to.
Look, I see that your students do a lot of great, get a lot of great results, and I know you post and brag about them all the time, which is also fantastic. In terms of that, do you get as much joy out of their success as your own successes? And also, when you're watching them, which do you feel better about in terms of nerves, when you're shooting yourself or watching someone that you want to achieve something get what they want?
My God, where does she come up with these? Jeez.
Yeah.
That's a hard question to answer. I'll tell you this: twice I've lost the world championships. I've lost the world championship to a student. Then I got down to me and him, and I've actually lost. And it's the weirdest feeling because I'll miss, and I'm like, damn it. And then they win. I'm like, yay. And I'm like, damn it. So,
Should I keep some of those secrets away?
Yeah, I'm not giving everything away. I'm keeping some of it to myself. I'm getting old. I got to have something.
Todd, it's been great to catch up with you. You're one of the people that put back into the sport, and you fitted our category perfectly for Champions Week for the coaches. If you mentioned before you hadn't met George Digweed, I'll give you a bit of advice. When we finish this interview, go into the bathroom, look into the mirror, put on your best British accent, and you've met him, because you're the American George Digweed. There's no doubt about it. And
that's a huge compliment, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it is or not.
It is a compliment.
Todd, we really appreciate your time tonight. You've been very generous. We look forward to seeing you back here in Australia pretty soon.
Well, I'll look you guys up when I come back, and thank you so much for inviting me and letting me be a part of this. And thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all the hard questions are done.
Oh, thank God.
Thanks, Todd.
Thank you.
All right, take care, guys.
Cheers.